I just built this simple inventory management tracker in N8N that automatically monitors and updates your product stock without you even clicking a single button. Remember those days when you had to do everything on Google Sheets? Back in my days, I did on pen and paper. Yeah, well, imagine having a computer do that while you're asleep. Oh, and did I mention a few $100s you'd save every week? My name is Derek. I work in procurement consulting during the day, and on the side, I like to help local businesses stop torching money like it's no tomorrow because of, say, manual inventory efforts. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I configured my N8N workflow so you can rebuild it yourself and customize it to your needs, all completely for free. Make sure you hit the subscribe and save button so you can save this video for later, because I'm going to put you on game here. Let's get into it. So this is the main N8N workflow here. My system actually comprises of a total of 3 workflows, but in today's video, I'm just going to show you the main one over here. I'll cover the other 2 in a separate video, but essentially the other 2 workflows help calculate the change in inventory stock. I'll first run a quick demo on this main workflow and what it actually does, and then I'll walk you through each of the individual nodes so you know how to set it up yourself and customize it for your own needs. The main purpose of this workflow is to essentially check your inventory stock. I'm using Google Sheets to track the inventory quantities and Gmail to send alerts for any items that are on low stock. But you can switch these out for your own needs, such as if you want to use Airtable for keeping track of your inventory, or use Slack or Telegram or anything like that. So let me pull up the inventory data that we're working with today. Right now, this is just a sample set of data. The example that we're using here is based off of an arcade, but this can pretty much work for any product-based business or any business where you need to keep track of inventory. So over here are all the fields that I have came up with and the arbitrary number of current quantities and reorder levels that we're setting. I don't think you need all of these fields per se, but I do think some of the more important ones you would need is obviously the item name, the item ID, or some sort of unique identifier to prevent duplication, and current quantity levels, and then the reorder level. So the entire workflow rests pretty much on the item ID, the current quantity, and the reorder level. Currently, the reorder level is set at an arbitrary number, but you will need to consult with your business manager or understand your own business needs on, say, what the demand is for these particular items and the current lead times to acquire these items to determine the reorder level. But in our case, is right now set to an arbitrary number. So how this workflow works is when the current quantity level reaches at or below the reorder level, it will aggregate a list of all the items that have at low stock levels and send you an email. These are the 4 items that need to be restocked because the current quantity is at or below the reorder level here. So now I'm going to go ahead and run the workflow. I'm going to click execute. Great. And now I'm going to get an email here. And click refresh. And as you can see, it's the same 4 items that we expected. So it lists out the item name and the current quantities, and then it sends out a message telling you to restock these items. So pretty simple enough. Now I'm going to walk you through each of the nodes and show you how you can set this up for yourself. So every N8N workflow needs a trigger of some sort. Right now it's set to a manual trigger. You can set a schedule trigger node here, which I've disconnected for the video's purpose. But currently this is set to trigger once per day after 6 p.m. This can run automatically if you'd like. But right now I've done it where it's a manual trigger where I just click this button. So when I click this button, it'll execute the workflow. And the first things it'll do is it'll first go through each of these other 2 workflows that I've alluded to here. First, it'll go through the inventory restock workflow. Basically, it'll check for any items where we've restocked or bought additional items and replenished our inventory storages. And then after that, it'll execute the inventory usage workflow. So check for items that have either been sold or diminished throughout the day. And then what essentially does, it'll take in the total number of items that have been used or replenished, and then it'll update the inventory. Now this is where the start of the main workflow begins. First, it reads the inventory database. So if I click into here, you can see that once when it goes through those two other workflows, it reads out the inventory database, which is shown here. This is the output. Essentially, we need this to be able to determine which items are reaching low stock and which aren't. In order to set this up, you'll need to connect to your Google account, which I've done here. And then once when you've connected your Google account, you can then search for the database in your Google Drive, which I've named it inventory test. And then you can even search within the tabs of that database, which is in my case named arcade inventory. Next, it'll go through these two filters that I've set here. These two nodes aren't exactly functional, but they're more set in place as data validation steps. So the first being is to filter out any negative quantity errors. If we catch any sort of miscalculation, or for some reason the previous workflows calculated a negative quantity, which that doesn't make sense and impossible to have, then it'll discard that from the rest of the workflow. And we have to check on those manually later. So as you can see in my workflow, there are no negative quantity errors, so it did not discard any items here. So it kept all 14 items. The next check is checking for any items that are pending approval. This kind of relates back to one of my other workflows, where essentially is checking if we're adding a new item into the item list and whether the business manager approves of that new item. So it will filter out items that are pending approval. Something that you don't have to worry about right now, but it's something that I've built in as a safeguard for my workflow. Now, this is the actual meat and bones of the N8N workflow that I've set up. And when I mean meat and bones, is pretty simple, actually. It's literally just one node. And essentially, it's this if node where it's checking whether the current quantity is less than or equal to the reorder level. So it's going through all of these checks, and then it outputs these 4 items, which is to be expected. As you can see, the current quantity is lower than the reorder level. And then in the false branch, it's discarding these other 10 items, where that's not the case. And then over here, I have this loops over items node. Essentially, it's just running this if statement over each of the items instead of doing it all at once. The reason why I have it this way is that it's useful when handling large data sets, so you don't hit API rate limits. And if, say, something does go wrong, there's some sort of strange miscalculation error, or the workflow is just producing an error, then we know at which point during that data read or at which item we see the error occurring at. And that's pretty much it. It kind of branches off from this loop node over to low stock alert workflow over here. First, it goes into this aggregates node, which is basically, as the name suggests, aggregating all of the items where we're seeing low stock. The reason why we have it this way is it's setting up for that email alert that's going to send out. If we don't have this node, it's essentially going to be sending an email for every single item. So instead of, in this case, 1 email for 4 items, you would get 4 separate emails with each of the items, which we don't want unless you want your inbox to blow up. So that's what it's doing here. It's essentially taking the item ID, the item name, and the current quantity. But for your own purposes, you can set it up to however you like, or you can output whichever columns that you would like. And second to last, we have this code node here, which is basically just coding in the email body itself. Right now, it's pulling in the item name and then some text here. So I have dash quantity and then the actual current quantity for that particular item. And then after that, it does a return or a new paragraph and puts the new item and iterates until the list is over. And then lastly, that email body goes into this Gmail node here, and it sends out the email body as well as this message: the following items have low stock. Again, you'd have to connect to your Gmail account and then an actual Gmail to send the message to. And that's about it. It's like I said, a pretty simple workflow, which I think anybody can really build for themselves. For the record, I don't have a coding background. The extent of my coding background are maybe 2-3 coding classes that I took during university, which I absolutely hated. It's totally doable, easy to pick up. So if I can do it, then so can you too. Some drawbacks that I will note with this N8N workflow is that it assumes that one, you have perfect data. So as you can see, all of my names here are perfectly spelled. I have item IDs laid out. It assumes that you have a good understanding of what the current quantities look like and what the reorder levels should be, those kind of things, which is not always going to be the case, just given my background in procurement consulting. Number two, you have systems in place that keeps track of the inventory restock and inventory sold. I'm currently working on iterating this workflow to address some of these issues. Once when I have that solution, I'll definitely show you guys in a future video. In addition, I love to build something that automates some part of the reordering process for you. Obviously, you don't want the full thing to be automated. You'd want to have some sort of manual input or some sort of eye on it, but I'll let you know if I come up with anything down the road. And that wraps up my demo on the inventory management system. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and save this video. Share it with a friend who might need this. If there's anything else that you would like to see or have any suggestions on how I can make this more useful, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback. And then lastly, if you're a business who needs automated inventory management solution, but don't have the technical skills or the time to build it themselves, please feel free to book a call with me using the link down below. I would love to chat and see where I can help. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.